legit, baby. It's one of the best days of my life.
See Marcus Freeman, let's show him how the Irish fight. Notre Dame teammates, let's get it. Oh, this is the way we live.
A national title on the line. How Notre Dame's march to college football's biggest prize is paying off for South Bend businesses and the university's bottom line.
Notre Dame remix, now that's big dog status. We won the Sugar Bowl,
Plus,
so we can't act.
the Caitlin Clark effect in Indianapolis. Learn more about the Indiana Fever's new multi-million-dollar training facility and how it could be a key to drive Indy to become the epicenter of women's sports. And
We are.
engineering students from Indiana building life-saving bridges in Africa. The payoff for that community and the students. Inside Indiana Business is next.
From Indiana's business news leader, this is IBJ Media's Inside Indiana Business with Gerry Dick. Presented by Elevate Ventures and Indiana University.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gerry Dick. Two Indiana sports organizations once again scoring big time when it comes to driving millions of dollars into the state's economy. The Indiana Fever, well, they're getting a brand new state-of-the-art $78 million sports performance center in the heart of downtown Indianapolis. We'll hear from Pacer Sports and Entertainment CEO Mel Raines on how the project fits in with Indy's goal to become the epicenter of women's sports by 2050. But first, we begin with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish playing for the College Football National Championship Monday night. How it's driving big bucks into the South Bend economy and why Notre Dame staying as an independent is paying off in a huge way. Notre Dame football, for generations, a way of life in the South Bend region.
It's what you do on a fall Saturday. You know, even if you don't have a game ticket, you go out and tailgate. You go out and just see and be seen and enjoy the festivities and all the other excitement.
And this year, with the Irish one win away from a national championship, our boots on the ground in South Bend says the vibe in the region is hitting very different.
Lots of people have told me that normally by November, December, it's usually very dead because the football season is over. But because Notre Dame made it into the playoffs this year, they're seeing a lot of unprecedented economic activity that they would ordinarily not see at this time of the year. So that's been a very huge plus for the numbers and for their bottom line.
All eyes are on the Hoosier State tonight. Notre Dame Stadium, the host for the first ever postseason game on a college campus.
Notre Dame started its playoff run December 20th at home against Indiana.
And it's 3-and-out to start the game for IU.
On that weekend 1 year earlier, hotel revenue in the region was at $850,000. This year for the IU playoff game, more than $4 million.
Those numbers are just tremendous, and you can't overstate the impact of the University of Notre Dame on any given day of the week. But you throw football in there, I mean, those numbers are just incredible.
Across midfield, 30, 20, 10, 5. You gotta be kidding me!
We absolutely think that South Bend, Indiana is on radar screens. It would never be on without Notre Dame. And no matter what Notre Dame's doing, we're happy it gets out there, and especially the football game gets some excitement. It gets a lot of people to town to visit. Once they get here, we think they see maybe something different than what they were expecting, and certainly is critical to our role in terms of trying to attract new business and capital investment to our area.
The Notre Dame brand is as visible as any brand out there.
Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish.
And because Notre Dame's brand remains independent, the Irish will get to keep all of its $20 million playoff pot of gold, while Ohio State must share.
$20 million from Ohio State's college football playoff pool goes back to the Big Ten. Every school in the Big Ten is going to walk away with the same amount. Notre Dame, that $20 million goes to the University of Notre Dame.
It takes everybody. And all you guys gave all you had to Notre Dame. And, damn, that's good, man.
A big game and certainly big money. Coming up next, the connection between a wrecking ball knocking down a jail and basketball. How Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever fit into the picture. That's when we come back.
And now Clark comes up with a steal. Clark thought about pulling up from three, will dip inside and lay it in. There are the first.
Caitlin Clark and her star power with the Indiana Fever perhaps playing a role in what's coming next for prime real estate in downtown Indianapolis. Pacer Sports and Entertainment announcing this week plans to build a new $78 million training facility for the Fever at the site of the former Marion County Jail 1 building, which is currently being torn down. Now, this is what to expect, a 3-story world-class training facility, which will include, among many amenities, 2 regulation-sized basketball courts, strength and conditioning equipment, and exclusive fan experiences. Pacer Sports and Entertainment CEO Mel Raines says the facility is part of a vision to make Indianapolis the epicenter for women's sports.
The intentionality in which we're building this facility to really think about the female athlete is something that hasn't been done in a lot of other places. And I think anyone can put up a couple of practice courts and throw a weight room together, but to really be thoughtful from what the female perspective is and what their needs are, which are different than male athletes, is really what's going to set this project apart.
The Fever Performance Center is right across from Gainbridge Fieldhouse and expected to open in 2027. Now, another big Indiana sports figure making headlines.
Luck confirmed his new job, and the role involves everything Stanford football touches, football-wise and business-wise. Do you like that, Ocho?
Hey, I love the move.
Well, most Hoosiers remember him as the signal caller for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Andrew Luck, the general manager of Stanford football. Luck, one of many big names landing jobs as GM in college athletics. Mary Rachel Redmond here now with what's driving this role of GM in the college ranks.
Well, Gary, that's right. Across the country, college football is undergoing a seismic shift. The pressures of recruiting and player development in the era of NIL and the transfer portal have led several major programs to rethink their approach. Enter the general manager, once a role exclusive to the NFL and most professional leagues, but not anymore.
Georgia swaggers in as the biggest favorite.
College football goes pro? No, not really, but it sure does sound that way. Take, for instance, North Carolina, who now has a head coach with the last name Belichick and a GM named Lombardi.
Arnold to the end zone.
Or even Oklahoma, who's brought in former AT&T CEO Randall Stevenson. Either way, there's no doubt about it. The business of college football is now on a whole new level, entering 2025 with teams' payrolls upwards of $20 million.
General manager is a new position to collegiate athletics. And over the years, it's just kind of been shaping and making more and more sense to have a general manager be a part of it, as college athletics has shifted to a more pro model-like organization.
Purdue has embraced their front office-like approach, recently hiring Brandon Lee as its general manager. The Indianapolis native and former Lawrence Central football standout played college ball at Missouri. He comes to West Lafayette after serving as associate athletic director for student-athlete brand strategy and innovation at Mississippi State.
Obviously, being a head football coach is a tall task in itself. And there's just been more and more piled on to that role over the years. There's a lot of moving parts in college athletics. There's, the NIL side of it. There's the rev share that's coming up. And then there's the transfer portal, and there's recruiting and scouting. Mentioned all of that, and I haven't even mentioned coaching. I think the general manager role is someone that's able to be trusted in that position to take those things off of their plate so that they can focus on the traditional foundational pieces of coaching and being a head ball coach.
And as college football becomes more about winning the transfer portal and banking NIL deals, Lee says his role is to serve as somewhat of a buffer.
The idea of it is to separate the two, where coaches can coach and then the general manager is doing the general management of those relationships, contracts, negotiations, all those different things, because when you mix the two, that's when it gets a little bit messy. We've seen that in these past couple of years of coaching, and we've seen some coach exhaustion. We've seen disruption amongst teams as well across the country.
So the rise in popularity of the general manager in college athletics is a natural next step.
I look at football specifically as becoming more kind of an executive group of an organization, and there's just more and more departments that are more lasered in focus on those areas so that you don't miss, because at this level, as fast-paced as college football works, you don't have time to miss. You don't have time to miss your targets. Otherwise, that will set you back from the inside working it, and then also outside from alumni, donors, fans, anybody who's affiliated with this institution, specifically at Purdue or at other institutions. Nobody wants to see you miss. Nobody wants to, be put back a year or two, or look at the long-term picture. They want results. It's a results-driven industry. So we want to win now. That's our goal, and it takes that laser focus.
Very interesting indeed, the business model changing in college sports. And Brandon Lee, no stranger to new Purdue football coach Barry Odom, right?
That's right. He played for him at Missouri.
All right.
So they've got a lot in common.
All right. Thanks very much, Mary Rachel. Well, up next, Indiana's driving force behind landing big business deals in the state under new leadership. Indiana's new Secretary of Commerce is in studio with what's next for the Indiana Economic Development Corporation and what it means for Hoosier investment and jobs. Well, Hoosier farmers, rural communities, regions around the state on the radar. New Indiana Governor Mike Braun targeting them for economic development and growth. And a key figure in the plan to push Indiana business growth, Indiana's new Secretary of Commerce, David Adams. He joins me now in studio. And David, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Gary, it's great to be here.
Well, and you're 3 days officially, right?
Absolutely.
Onto the job. I want to talk about regional economic development around the state, but also the new Indiana Economic Development Corporation, if you will. A lot more responsibilities and things under that umbrella. What's it going to look like?
Well, so Governor Braun has really elevated this position as the Secretary of Commerce to be not just the traditionally, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, but a recognition that workforce is critical to everything we do in Indiana. So now I've got responsibility for all workforce operations, tourism, the ports. I mean, if you think about it, we really have aligned commerce in a way that makes us much more effective when we're talking to new businesses, but as importantly, when we're working with existing businesses here in Indiana.
Yeah, what I mentioned in the introduction there, looking at regional economic development, that's going to be a focus, as I understand. I've heard the governor talk about it and really getting out around the state.
Absolutely. So Governor Braun always talks about the four corners, and we want to make sure that we understand that within a region, the needs of that region are actually very different from one region to another. But he's established 4 priorities that I'm going to carry out over the next 4 years. One, we have an incumbent workforce of 3.4 million people, and we clearly have more demand for jobs than we have supply. So we're going to work with employers to figure out how to upskill and reskill incumbent workers to meet their most high demand, high value jobs. So today in Indiana, if you acquire a piece of equipment that increases the productivity, we provide you a tax credit. We're going to do the same thing with human capital. The recognition that the workforce is the most important thing. Number 2, we want to expand when we think about commerce, not just of bringing new businesses to Indiana, but on a regional basis, how do we take care and really work with existing employers to focus on what their needs are? And part of that's going to be, how do we work with those employers to understand who else would they like to see in Indiana? So we're really going to start thinking about this strategically to proactively think about what businesses do we want here and why, and tell our why Indiana story. The third piece is, as you know, Governor Braun and First Lady have been very successful in Main Street, Indiana. So we're going to set up an office around entrepreneurship and innovation, but not just focus on VC-backed businesses, but focus on everyday companies, whether it's you're looking to buy an existing business or you're looking to expand into existing or into new businesses. We want to be able to help support that in a meaningful way. And the last thing, we've been so fortunate over the last few years to have 3 tech hubs that have been awarded to Indiana on a federal basis. The Microelectronics Hub, the Hydrogen Hub, and the Heartland Bioworks Hub. We're going to bring those to life. And that's going to help us attract and retain the college graduates here in Indiana. So we're going to canvass all the workforce needs and business needs here in Indiana through this new architected commerce.
You talk about innovation and entrepreneurship. You have background in that, setting up an innovation ecosystem at the University of Cincinnati, in Cincinnati. What's key? What will be key in your view from an innovation and entrepreneurship standpoint?
So a couple things. So one is we recognize that today when we talk to businesses, the number one issue they have is workforce. So how do we connect the economic engines, our higher ed institutions, K through 12, how do we connect these workforces more closely with the businesses that need that? The second piece of this is when you think about universities, how do we commercialize that technology and actually start businesses around it? So what we want to do is start to think about this thematically. Here in Indianapolis, we know we have the largest medicine company in the world. We have the largest independent animal health company in the world. And we also have this ag company called Corteva. How do we start to build an ecosystem specific around that, which may be different than when we go to Fort Wayne and talk about what their needs are?
Lots more we can talk about. Sorry, I've run out of time here. David Adams, Indiana's new Secretary of Commerce. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Good to be with you. All right. Thank you.
Here's what's making news around Indiana. Brought to you by the Indiana Association of Realtors. Indiana's 21,000 realtors. The neighbors you know, the experts you can count on.
And we begin this week in Hamilton County, where there are big plans for a new district at Grand Park in Westfield. The district's master plan aims to blend sports with business and community. It could include a sports stadium seating 10,000, sports technology incubator space, mixed-use development, and a lot more. Grand Park currently has more than 5 million visitors each year. IBJ reporter Daniel Bradley has much more on this planned development on our website. Well, at the State House, Senator Andy Zay has filed a bill that would allow Full House Resorts to transfer its gaming license from Rising Sun to New Haven. Full House wants to build a new $500 million casino and hotel in the Ellen County city. Zay tells Inside Indiana Business he believes the project is an opportunity for the region. The bill has been referred to a committee, and we'll keep you updated as it moves through the legislature. Well, coming up next, business news making headlines in Indiana's health sector. And
this program is that while we build literal bridges, we're building figurative bridges as well.
Building bridges, saving lives, how engineering students from one Indiana college are making a difference halfway around the globe. Well, lots of health news making business headlines around Indiana to start the new year. A company based in the UK that makes a new disinfection product plans to put down roots in Indy. Here's Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta.
Well, thank you, Gary. Sandoff says its disinfection system kills viruses and bacteria like norovirus, MRSA, and the COVID and flu virus. Its flagship product is a spraying system that has a canister about the size of a carry-on suitcase with a spray nozzle attached. The solution contains hydrogen peroxide, which is commonly used to disinfect, but it's applied in the form of a dry vapor.
So that means when you're disinfecting like a place with electronic equipment, like a hospital room or a laboratory, those kind of things with sensitive equipment, you can leave all that turned on because it doesn't leave a residue, it doesn't leave it wet, you don't have to wipe it down afterwards. So it's really effective, but also makes it much easier to use for the company that's using it.
Sandoff, which has one client in South Bend, says the product is ideal for patient rooms, ORs, labs, and clean rooms. The company has international locations, but is new to the U.S. It has incorporated in Indianapolis and, based on sales, plans to build its U.S. headquarters in Marion County. Eli Lilly and Company making a big move this week to expand its cancer pipeline. Lilly will acquire Boston-based biotech startup Scorpion Therapeutics in a deal worth up to $2.5 billion. The acquisition gives Lilly the startup's breast cancer drug, which also shows promise for other solid tumors. The treatment is in early clinical trials and is a targeted therapy, which is considered the next generation of cancer drugs that attack only cancerous cells and avoid healthy tissue. A merger in the orthopedic space is the latest example of the market consolidation wave in healthcare. Ortho Indy in Indianapolis, Tri-State Orthopedics in Evansville, and Fort Wayne Orthopedics will merge to become Ortho Indiana. Leaders say each practice will keep their local clinics, current names, and branding. The newly formed Ortho Indiana is expected to launch this summer. Warsaw-based OrthoPediatrics is hitting another milestone in a major growth spurt. After launching its specialty bracing division just 1 year ago, OrthoPediatrics is opening its first clinic in Indiana, located near Peyton Manning Children's Hospital and a Riley satellite office in Indianapolis. OrthoPediatrics also acquired a Colorado company and an existing clinic in Florida to expand its footprint in those two states. The division makes specialty braces for kids as an alternative to surgery.
Time now for our Eye on Education, brought to you by PNC Bank.
Well, 2 words, building bridges. It's not a cliche to describe this week's Eye on Education feature. It's the real deal for a group of engineering students from the University of Southern Indiana, putting their hearts and hands to work to make life-saving connections halfway around the globe.
Look at this. This is incredible.
When the river floods every year, the community loses access to essential resources.
These are all really rural communities. There's no way to drive. The majority of individuals don't have cars anyway. They walk everywhere that they go.
Engineering students from the University of Southern Indiana, saving lives in Africa by putting their skills to work to solve the getting to and from the problem, building footbridges to connect communities.
You'll have these centers where the school, the church, any sort of like grocery store or shopping, as well as medical care, are on one side of the river, but then you have individuals living on the other side of the river because it's primarily agricultural. So, they need lots of land, just like here in Indiana. They're growing crops, they're raising animals, and that takes up a lot of space. So not everybody can live right next to the school or the church or the medical clinic. And so those people that are part of these communities on the other side of the river, face potential death, drowning by going and trying to cross the river during those floody seasons.
Nearly 9,000 miles separates the USI campus in Evansville and Eswatini, a 30-hour plane ride, halfway around the world. Building bridges in that remote part of the world presents some big challenges.
We were having to just do things by hand with non-powered hand tools, which I think for all the engineering students is a really good experience to learn how to adapt when you don't necessarily have the perfect tool for the job. They just don't have the same materials and resources that we have. And so the students have to learn how to operate within that structure. We had, limited numbers of paintbrushes and limited amounts of thinner available to even clean our materials at the end of the day.
USI students like Jonas Hollis gaining real-life experience through the Engineers in Action program.
Overall, it was a really fun experience once I got there. You really saw how it impacted the community. There's just a lot of the bigger names from civil engineering side over there. So it's perfect if you're trying to find a starting job right after college.
The pride that they feel that now their community was no longer divided was just really, really important to them.
We would love to thank you for helping us build this bridge and providing us with access. May God bless you.
Really great program there. USI engineering students' next mission to build bridges in Africa this May, and it will take most of the summer to complete the projects. Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gerry Dick. We leave you now with a few more images of the University of Notre Dame Fighting Irish as they prepare to win a national championship Monday night.
Now pressure coming. Aller throws. Loose ball. Intercepted. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish have won the Orange Bowl and will advance to a national championship in Coach Marcus Freeman's third year at Notre Dame.
Thank you for listening to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can get the latest business news from every corner of the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gerry Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.